In this presentation, we will be discussing the poetic books of Job, Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, and Song of Songs. For each book, we will discuss a few key points. For the book of Job, we will discuss the two main questions of the book and the importance of godly friends. In the book of Psalms, we will discuss the different type of psalms. In Proverbs, we will discuss several sections of the book. For Ecclesiastes, we will discuss the main themes as well as why it is so dark and what is the resolution. In the book of Song of Songs, we will discuss the name as well as different ways to interpret it. The book of Job tells the story of a godly man who loses everything. During this time, his friends share their advice and perspectives to help him through these tough times. Job struggles with why do bad things happen to good people, and is God just? His friends try to help him by offering reasons for why God does what he does, but unfortunately none are fully scriptural. God enters the scene and God shows him that he sees life from a different perspective as the creator. And as humans, we can't always see the big picture and must trust that the creator does. God is just, but sometimes we are unable to see it with our finite minds. The book of Job also delves into the importance of godly friends. While the friends give poor advice at times, they do sit with Job in his grief. A godly friend is with you in the good and bad times and encourages you to look at life through a godly lens. A godly friend is important to believers' walk, as we are not meant to travel this life alone. The book of Psalms is one of the most loved books in the Bible. We will be discussing three types of psalms: praise, thanksgiving, and laments. When one thinks of the Psalms, he thinks of the praise psalms. A praise psalm is different from a psalm of thanksgiving because it does not reference a prior struggle or recent divine intervention. Its focus is on worshiping God for who he is and all his benefits. A thanksgiving psalm thanks God for his deliverance or answer to a specific problem or issue. The final type of psalm we will be discussing is a lament. There are more lament psalms than any other types of psalms. At its simplest form, a lament is a complaint to God. There is normally a request to God to intervene, and then we find the complaint followed by thanksgiving. A believer can use the Psalms in his daily prayer and praise time to worship God, or use the laments in seasons of griefs. In the book of Proverbs, we will be looking at the introductory section, core proverbs, and the words of King Lemuel. The introductory proverbs introduce the purpose of the book and launches Proverbs as wisdom is personified, calling to men. In many places, it is addressed to my son or my sons. In Proverbs 10 through 22, it forms the core classical proverbs. They have strict literary form, and this is the longest portion of the book. The words of King Lemuel are found in Proverbs 31. King Lemuel was not Jewish and may have not been an actual person. For the believer, Proverbs can be an essential part of daily devotional time, as there are 31 of them, one for each day of the month. Understanding the groupings of Proverbs can help one better understand context as well as plan one's devotional time. The book of Ecclesiastes. The first thing we must struggle with is what is the best translation? Is it trying to tell us everything is meaningless, vanity, or fleeting? When delving into the Hebrew word and looking at it contextually, it makes sense that a good translation would be fleeting. In Ecclesiastes 1, it would not make sense for the speaker to describe wisdom as meaningless or vain, but it does make sense that it would be fleeting. Fleeting can also be seen as vapor-like, which is a great description of life. Why is this book so dark and depressing? When one looks at the bigger picture, the dark heaviness is there to capture the attention of the reader and ultimately propel him to seek resolution. The main point and resolution is that while many things are fleeting, living for God and right relationship is the only solution. The believer should make sure he is not grasping at things that will ultimately vanish like a vapor, but rather focus on his relationship with God. The book of Song of Songs has a few questions to struggle through. The first question is, if it is referred to as Song of Solomon, does it mean he wrote it? Not necessarily. It could be that it was attributed to Solomon because it was so beautifully written and the writing so well done it was worthy of Solomon. Is it just a love story? Well, that depends on which interpretation one follows. The allegorical interpretation says it is entirely an allegory, not to be taken literally. The typical interpretation believes that it is two levels, an allegory with Christ and the church or Yahweh and his people, and the love story of the main characters. Finally, there is a literal translation that sees it as just a love poem. No matter which translation the believer believes is the most accurate, it is important for him to realize that God cares about our relationship and lovingly pursues us. We have discussed many points for each of the poetic books. Ultimately, the study of God's Word should bring us closer to knowing Him and living our lives for Him. Each of these books can help us become closer to God, each in its unique way.